that literacy, that
And
fluency.
that's how I got my first one. I think I was probably like 5 or 6 years old, and it was just to show me this is happening.
Yep.
So I guess that's not what's happening anymore, huh?
For a lot of our residents, no, that you don't have that sort of built history, that normalization of money comes in and where does it go? It goes into the bank, but rather it's going into a jar on top of the refrigerator. It's going into our wallet, or for many of our residents, it's going right back out, paying those bills, groceries, utilities.
But Dan, this isn't something necessarily that's new. It's been happening for a very long time here in Houston and Harris County. We know that people are a little bit leery of banks. Why do you think that is? And is it a cultural thing? Talk to me about that.
I mean, so unfortunately, it's based entirely off of founded history that, there have been exploitative practices that banks have used to target particular areas, to target particular groups of people. I mean, you can think about even more recently, such as the subprime mortgage crisis that was very specifically, I shouldn't say very specifically, but disproportionately targeting individuals, people of color, Black and brown communities. And so, this isn't one of those like a century ago there was this thing. I mean, we're talking about in recent history, memory history, kind of like these are the experiences people had. And so when you start to talk to individuals about, are you going to put that at the bank, or you're going to open a CD, or you're going to take a retirement account, they're going, why would I trust those people? They took my neighbor's home away from them. Yesterday is what it's going to feel like to a lot of people.
I have a savings, I have a checking, but I would consider myself financially ignorant. I don't know what to do with my money. Thank God no one
I can
gave
help
me
you with
much.
that, right?
Yeah, so let's know where my money should go. But I'm curious, you looked at this area, but how does it look, and I don't know if you have these numbers, I assume you do, nationwide, are we the norm, or are we unique in this area?
So the FDIC does an annual survey where they actually look to test people's financial knowledge. And we as a country are typically very average in our financial knowledge. And so here in the Houston area, while we did not directly assess people's financial knowledge, we asked them sort of a self-report. How do you think your knowledge is? Now, you could straight up lie and say, hey, my knowledge is fantastic. I have this and that and the other thing, and maybe you don't know what you're talking about. But actually, our average score was a 5 on a scale of 0 to 10. And so self-assessment aside, even from just like a self-reflecting moment, we're going, I am at best average. And that does align with some of those more national.
So this is a bigger problem than justice.
This is a much bigger problem than that.
Why is it important? And I know you've kind of addressed it, but just to put it in focus, why is it important to have these things? And now in today's day and age, there are different things to do with money. There's different monies now, bringing those cryptos. Why is it important that we still have a traditional savings and or checking account?
These are going to be the things that open up to us big item purchases. Big item purchases, thinking about a new car, thinking about a home, and particularly in that home space, that is where you start to accumulate wealth that's not just about you right now, but becomes that intergenerational building of wealth. I've got a home, and so I'm gonna pay it off. I'm gonna have that as a sort of resource there, and then I'm gonna hand that down if it gets sold to children or grandchildren. And if I'm not able to actually buy that home, I'm not setting in motion that intergenerational wealth building. And in fact, that inability to buy a home is what's further building and separating out the haves from the have-nots when it comes to wealth.
And so where are people going for financial advice for their personal finances? Where are Houstonians going for that?
Yes, please. I need that number.
You're not going to like this. It's friends and family.
They're worse than me.
I can't speak to your friends or family, and I'm not no swipes at my own. But that is their primary source. That we asked. We said, hey, who is your primary source if you're trying to make a decision about money purchases? It's family and friends. In fact, financial professionals was number 3 on the list behind websites.
Really?
Well, the thing is I think there's often a stigma around financial professionals. One, it can be expensive. And 2, I'm barely making it here. Why am I going to trust another person that I don't know with my money?
Well, and I think that's really getting at this idea of like our community and the financial well-being of us is something that's just not shared, evenly across. And so while we might think about these things, we're like, if you're not well, if you're feeling sick, we have doctors, we have clinics, we have people we go to help us feel better physically, mentally even, right? But we don't think about our finances in that same sort of vein. And so we don't think about like, oh, my finances, I'm struggling with this. I should probably get a professional involved, right? But rather it becomes a luxury item that for too many people is exactly as you're pointing to. Why am I going to spend my money for this dude or for this guy,
This professional.
Yeah.
Well, in my case, so I have an abnormally large amount of money in my savings account.
Okay.
And nothing else. Because I don't know what to do with the money. So my bank, they call quite regularly to say, hey, we'd like to help you know. But every time they call, it's somebody else. And they have so I don't believe, for me, and I know this is just my own fear and it isn't the reality situation, but what it says to me is this person's only going to be here for a moment. Who's really going to watch who's really going to guide me? This person is just at the desk right now. So I don't know where to go. And I sit there just sitting there. I mean, that's my financial. Help me.
Well, and I think that's where it's a lot of people think to themselves, how do I make my money work for me as opposed to just constantly working for my money kind of a situation. But it is that thing of, especially right now where you see markets are so volatile. And so there becomes that question of, you know, do I put it there? And if you have the opportunity for that long-term investment strategy, if I'm just going to set it and forget it, perhaps that's a route that folks could be considering. But this is just one of those spaces where who am I supposed to talk to? What are the mechanisms that we as a community, as a society are building for people to be able to learn these things? And I think previously you might have thought, oh, well, schools are teaching financial knowledge, aren't they? Ask a kid to fill a checkout these days.
Right. And I want to touch a little bit on the word disparity because you did mention that and that growth that is happening. In 8 of 30 neighborhood areas that you surveyed, more than 25% of the residents are unbanked. 1, define unbanked, and 2, talk to me about those neighborhoods that you identified.
Yeah, so by unbanked, we are very much focusing on a checking account and a savings account. That do you have either of those? If you do, great. You are banked.
Which feels very basic.
Incredibly basic.
Does that include online banks? Are they the same as traditional banks?
So we are focused on a traditional checking account or traditional savings account. So if you have, say, a high yield savings account, that was not taken into consideration there. If you happen to have cryptocurrency, which we were bringing up earlier, we're not really looking at that per se. But we did look at a variety of different things. Again, retirement accounts, individual investment accounts, so like stock portfolio kind of things, the checking, the traditional saving, the cryptocurrency, and even ticking through all of those different things, 9% of Houston area residents said, I don't have any of that going on right now. So you're talking like 1 in 10, 1 in 11 folks.
So then where are they putting their money?
Great question. And in fact, that was what spurred this entire survey was what are we doing as a community with our funds? And there's a lot of stories out there where you can talk with community organizations that are working, you know, hand in hand with individuals to build better financial well-being. And the stories that are coming from those are they have a jar on their refrigerator. They've got an envelope in the drawer.
Last question before we let you go. I'm curious if everyone did step up and were putting their money where it should go into banks and savings account. As a community, how does it benefit us?
It benefits us by creating that opportunity for our money to be making money for us and not just
But not
us
individually. Does it have a benefit to our community as a whole?
It would also potentially bring banks, credit unions into communities that do not currently have them. And that the end result of that is those banks begin making investments back into the communities where they are located so that you kind of have this economic churn and this engine set off so that you can potentially be building out resources within a community through this banking process that you just don't really have right now with communities where they don't have that brick and mortar bank built, anchored, rooted in the community.
Dan Potter is the director of the Houston Population Research Center at Kinder Institute for Urban Research at Rice University. Dan, thanks for joining us.
This is the best of Hello Houston on News 88.7. I'm Jim Kovacic, the executive producer of the show. And just a quick reminder, you can listen to our live Hello Houston show weekdays from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. on News 88.7. You can also live stream the show at HoustonPublicMedia.org. And if you have any comments about Hello Houston or this Best of program, please text us at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Coming up next on the Best of Hello Houston, we talk to the founders of Houston's Mini Murals. This is News 88.7.
It's more important than ever to stay informed. That's why Houston Public Media delivers well-researched news that's free for everyone.
And right now, your support helps make sure it stays that way. No subscription, no paywall, just news that's here when you need it.
Give today to keep yourself and your community informed, no matter what the future holds.
Make your donation now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
Or call 888-909-0887.
Some say the greatest gift is to get to know the person you've admired from afar. Others say never meet your heroes. Well, they can't both be right, so on the next Snap Judgment, we proudly present Jorge, Gina, y Dante. Snap Judgment, storytelling with the beat, cinema of sound. Do not miss it.
Saturday evening at 8, followed by Radio Lab at 9 on News 88.7.
And now back to the Best of Hello Houston on News 88.7 with Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
All right, mini murals. These are wonderful. These electric boxes all over. This is an award-winning civic art program. It transforms the traffic signal control boxes into these beautiful works of art to make the community, I think it uplifts the community. It just makes everybody feel better, and they're beautiful. This was created by Up Art Studio in 2015, has the support of everybody, the mayor's office, the city council members, Fresh Arts, East End Foundation. And really the team behind it is the husband-wife little couple here that we have in our studio right now, Elia and Noah Quiles.
Thank you, Frank. Thanks for having us.
Directors of mini murals, for sure. I want to get first your mic on. And secondly, tell me how many, there we go. How many of these murals are there around here?
I'll take that answer.
What is this, Jeopardy over there?
Yeah.
What is 425 mini murals to date. There's 2,600 cabinets total. The goal is to knock them all out.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's get to the nuts and bolts. Who came up with this idea?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
No, it is?
I'm going to tell you. I wish I take all the credit now.
Okay, good.
Okay. So she came to me. We were in Art Basel, and she goes, "Babe, this is amazing. They're doing it. They're doing it in California. They did it in a small town somewhere in Texas. Dublin. They're doing it in Dublin." I said, "You know what? Why not Houston?" And, well, I should say, she said, "Why not Houston?" And I was like, "Well, let's do it." So then we found the individual at Public Works who was the director. And I simply asked, "Are you the right person?" He goes, "I am. But I also don't have any money for you." I was like, "No problem."
We'll find a way.
Yeah.
So basically the city gave you the space to put them on, and then you guys had to go out and create the concept and the institution around it to be able to do it.
Correct, Ernie. So they are the owners of the property who do the maintenance, and they, our taxpayer money pays for, Public Works to go and install these to make sure that the traffic signal control cabinets keep everyone safe. It's really important that everybody uses the crosswalks.
So did you just put a call out to artists and say, "Hey, who's interested?"
We have done open calls in the past. We have an artist roster, probably about 80 local artists currently. And probably every 2 years or so, we do open calls.
And so are the artists able to just go and do whatever is inspiring them at that moment, or do they have to send in different what kind of restrictions, or what does that look like when you're working with artists and the city?
So it's based on who sponsors the cabinet. And they're the ones that have a say in what goes on boxes themselves. We do, we approach design in a number of ways. Some sponsors will select a specific artist from our roster, or they will look through our portfolios of concepts that the artists have already, come up with. And in other cases, they're like, we want something specific, or we want our community, our neighborhood to decide what's going to
represent. Oliaee, do you have a favorite that you love?
There's so many. It's hard. It's really hard to say. But there is one which looks like embroidered, like Mexican embroidery, and it's really beautiful. And it looks so like that.
And where is that located?
It's in the East End on Canal and Sancy.
Yeah, not too far from our studio.
So recently, you folks got a lot of attention going on some national morning program. Want to tell us a little
program?
Yeah. So Eddie got this call, and she's like, "Oh, this group wanted to do an interview," and I was like, "Who?" And she said, "NBC." And I was like, "Are you sure about that?"
You mean KPRC? No.
And so,
big NBC.
So then take it away, Eliane.
Yeah, and so she said, "I'm going to pitch it to a couple of different shows, and don't expect a call back right away." But a week later, she called back and she said, "The Today Show wants to do this."
Yeah, I saw the interview, and it was the first time I'd ever heard. I mean, I've seen these murals. There's one around near River Oaks District. We walk by it all the time.
And there's one off Woodway that I love. It's a Houston Oilers kind of theme, and
I think we've all seen them. And then we just say, and then we just, we're driving, so we don't think too much about them.
Yeah, and they're not. Oh, sorry.
Well, what has the reaction been?
I mean, the reaction has been nothing but positive. People just love them. People identify, where they live. Sometimes we're like, "Oh, I live by the Willie Nelson box," or "I'm over here by this one."
Or what happened to the Frida Kahlo box by the house?
And are they continuing?
We are getting ready to renegotiate our contract.
The city is about to renew our
contract.
Yeah, so we're working through the renewal. But I did want to say also from the conversation earlier, it's not just City of Houston boxes that we're doing. We also do TxDOT boxes and Harris County boxes. And so recently we've started working more with TxDOT, and so that's kind of expanded our possibilities.
Oliaee and Noah Aquiles are the directors of many murals. Thank you both for joining us today on Hello Houston.
We appreciate you for having us.
And that's a wrap for this edition of the Best of Hello Houston. I'm Jim Kovacic, the executive producer of the show. But of course, I got to thank the Hello Houston team: Garrett Bowman, William Menjivar, Jen Altide, Todd Holslander, and our hosts, of course, Ernie Manus, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley. The opinions expressed by guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Hi, this is Matt Harrop. There's been a lot of news to cover in Houston over the last few months. Keep listening to Houston Public Media for the latest, and if you've got a car, truck, boat, or RV you don't need anymore, donate it to the station. It could be worth hundreds of dollars in support. The donation process is easy for you, and we'll pick up your vehicle in any condition. Here's how to get started. Go to houstonpublicmedia.org/cars to learn more. Thank you.
Support comes from the Eternal Gandhi Museum, Houston, highlighting the power of nonviolent conflict resolution through examples of peace leaders worldwide. Now open. Field trips and group visits available. More at egmh.org. Your NPR station, News 88.7 KUHF Houston, a service of the University of Houston. Get local and breaking news anytime at houstonpublicmedia.org. Listen to us on your favorite devices. Tell your smart speaker to play News 88.7.
From the Center for Investigative Reporting and PRX, this is Reveal. I'm Al Letty. Today, we're going to a competition.
And here they are.
50 high school girls, one from each state, are competing for big college scholarships.
Amy Pham, Tennessee. This is so nerve-wracking. I have to breathe.
Then a rumor starts to spread.
And then I hear little whispers. People are freaking out. She's just crying hysterically.
There's just been big news from Washington.
I was like, what Supreme Court decision?
50 teen girls trying to make sense of a life-changing rule all at once. That's today on Reveal. But first, this news.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Nora Robb.
3 months after the Trump administration mistakenly deported Gilmore Abrego Garcia to a mega prison in El Salvador, he's been returned to the U.S. to face federal criminal charges. NPR's Claire Marie Schneider has more.
U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi announced that a grand jury in Tennessee had charged the Maryland resident for playing a significant role in smuggling immigrants into the U.S. over the past 9 years.
This is what American justice looks like.
In 2019, Abrego Garcia received protection from deportation to his native El Salvador because he faced potential gang violence there. But the Trump administration justified mistakenly deporting Abrego Garcia in March by accusing him of being a member of the Salvadoran MS-13 gang. Abrego Garcia's lawyer, Simon Sandoval Moshenberg, told NPR that authorities were bringing his client back to, quote, not correct their error, but to prosecute him. Claire Marie Schneider, NPR News.
President Trump and former Trump advisor Elon Musk had a public falling out this week, with both men posting strong comments on their respective social media sites. Both suggested an end to Musk's contracts with the federal government. NPR's Stephen Fowler reports that could hurt both sides.
In the middle of that social media spat on Thursday, Trump threatened to end Musk's contracts. Musk threatened to decommission the Dragon capsule, but either one of those actions would seriously cripple both Musk's companies and the federal government. I mean, the government subsidy piece is a big part of Musk's wealth that in turn allowed him to buy social media site X and donate about $250 million to help send Trump to the Oval Office last year.
NPR's Stephen Fowler. Hospital officials in Gaza say at least 8 people were shot dead today, at least 2 yesterday, as they attempted to reach food distribution sites set up by a private U.S.-run group backed by Israel. Military officials say warning shots were fired. Dozens of Palestinians have been killed approaching the U.S. group's site during its first 2 weeks in operation. NPR's Carrie Kahn reports.
The latest shootings near the new food sites occurred early Saturday morning in southern Gaza. Palestinians head to the sites early, hoping to get food before parcels run out. Yunus Ahmed told NPR he approached one of the sites at 4:30 a.m., but the crowd was hit by pepper spray from guards he says were Americans. And then the army started shooting at us, he said. He went to another site but was told only women would get food. Nasser Hospital says it received 8 people killed by gunfire at the site. Israel's army says it is aware of reports of casualties and that its troops fired warning shots at, quote, suspects that posed a threat. The UN says Israel has weaponized vital aid in Gaza. Carrie Kahn, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
This is NPR News. Russia attacked the Ukrainian city of Kharkiv overnight with high-precision long-range missiles and drones. Ukrainian officials say at least 3 people were killed. The mayor says it was the most powerful attack against the city since Russia's full-scale invasion more than 3 years ago. The American tennis star Coco Gauff has defeated the world's top-ranked player, Aryna Sabalenka, to win the French Open women's singles title. It's Gauff's 2nd career Grand Slam title. NPR's Becky Sullivan has more.
Gauff looked shaky to begin the French Open final, quickly falling behind 4-1 in the first set, but Sabalenka slipped up. Double faults, unforced errors, and Gauff took advantage. The American battled back to force a tiebreak in the first set, then won the second and third to take her title. In total, Sabalenka committed 70 unforced errors, while Gauff only had 30. Afterwards, Sabalenka tearfully apologized to her coaches for playing so poorly. Gauff, who is ranked number 2 in the world, is 21 years old. She's the first American to win the French Open since Serena Williams won it last in 2018, and the youngest American to do so since Serena's first title there in 2002. The men's final between Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz is Sunday. Becky Sullivan, NPR News.
In college sports, a federal judge has approved the settlement of an antitrust class action lawsuit against the NCAA. Schools in the top division will be able to pay athletes directly for the first time starting in the fall. Former student athletes will also be paid for their time in schools when they could not be paid under the former rules. I'm Nora Rong, NPR News in Washington.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Made in Cookware. Made in Cookware is crafted by chefs for use in restaurants and home kitchens around the world. Their cookware can be found at madeincookware.com. This is NPR.
From the Center for Investigative Reporting in PRX, this is Reveal. I'm Al Letson.
Okay, I'm officially almost late to the airport.
It's an early summer morning in 2022. Reporter Shima Oliaee is rushing out of her apartment in New York City to get to the airport.
I'm still at home and I'm packing up jewelry on top of all this. I don't know, man. This is a lot. Hi, that was the 5 a.m. bell.
She makes it to JFK, but...
Hi. Hey, so I missed my flight. Oh my God.
That's Shima's mom.
Remember, life sucks and then you die.
Shima needs to make it to Mobile, Alabama, where she'll be attending a competition that's been around almost 70 years.
From Mobile, Alabama, it's the America's Junior Miss pageant, featuring 50 of the most outstanding young women in the nation.
It used to be called America's Junior Miss, and for decades, it was carried live on TV.
Have you ever seen 50 brighter smiles in all your life?
Winners got written up in the New York Times, appeared on talk shows, and even went to the White House.
Mr. President, this is Junior Miss America.
These days, the competition is called Distinguished Young Women, or DYW. And at the end of this month, 50 high school seniors, one from each state, will compete for scholarship money for college. We aired this story last year, but we're bringing it back to kick off the summer. Our guide is reporter Shima Oliaee, who was a contestant herself in 2001.
Hi, I'm Shima Oliaee from Reno, Nevada, and I love to swim with my team and family in the beautiful waters of Lake Tahoe.
And in 2022, she was invited back to be a judge.
Okay, so first off, I didn't know if I wanted to go back because when I was there the first time, I lost. And also the program, it's a little pageant-y. And I'm a journalist now. I didn't even know if I wanted anyone to know I did this. But the thought of being able to hear directly from young women at this time felt really important. So I told them, yes, I'll be a judge, but may I send 2 producers down to record everything behind the scenes? And luckily, they said yes.
But the story she got was not what she expected. In the final days of the competition, there was news from Washington that had big implications for women across the nation. These 50 girls had to make sense of it all, with Shima and her team capturing everything in real time. It's all in a 6-part podcast Shima made in collaboration with Wondery and Pineapple Street Studios called The Competition.
This series changed how I view America. I came away from it thinking, damn, American teen girls are the canaries in the coal mine.
Today, we're going to hear what it was like to be in Mobile for those 2 crazy weeks, which started off like any other DYW competition.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome on board Flight 4B7.
The girls arrive at the airport in Mobile and immediately size each other up.
She definitely was someone that all the girls were keeping their eye on.
So intimidated. I was like, oh my God, there's a winner right there.
The first day is really overwhelming for the girls. So you're coming down the escalators, all these residents in Mobile are cheering for you, press is taking photos every minute. Then you're shuttled away into this private location for orientation. There's fittings, girls have to try on their costumes and outfits in front of each other. It's a vulnerable situation.
So here's what I want you to do. I want you to raise your arms up like this. I'm just checking for tummy, that's all.
It can be intimidating having to put on an outfit, run into a room, and about 4 ladies look at you and be like, this doesn't fit right.
You see any skin? It's no skin, no skin, no skin, no skin.
As a judge, Shima immerses herself with the girls.
I had to study them, like in my role as a judge. So it's 50 teens. They are the best and brightest from across the country. There's Minnesota, who just one of her dreams is to cure cancer. Pennsylvania, she's whatever is a couple steps past a black belt in karate. Illinois is a renowned flutist who's performed with the Chicago Symphony, and Colorado should already be on Broadway. It's intimidating, like a United Nations of teen girls.
When you come from a small town, it's so easy to be the best of the best and like, oh, I'm cheer captain, I'm senior class president, I'm president of 4 other things, but these girls are president of 8 other things, and they run a business. So it kind of humbles you and opens your eyes to like, you're not always going to be the best of the best.
That's Tennessee's contestant, Amy Pham. She's the daughter of Vietnamese immigrants and wants to become a lawyer. Then you have Caitlin Rook, a ballerina turned politician.
If I am elected, I'll be the 2nd youngest legislator in the country.
She's the Republican nominee up for a seat in the Montana legislature. Then there's Salma Bedagon from New Mexico. On top of getting straight A's, she's been working since age 13 to help her mom pay the rent. She wasn't even supposed to be at nationals, but the winner from her state program couldn't make it, and she was the runner-up. What was rehearsal like that first day?
I was overwhelmed. People already knew the choreography or were amazing at it, and I was barely like getting by.
The girls spent the first 7 days getting ready for the formal competition. Every day they get up at dawn and rehearse until the sun sets. They spend every waking hour together. They bond.
Stand by. We're rolling. 1, 2, 3.
We are ready to party!
And then, at the start of the second week, things get more serious.
Yeah, it's at this point where girls really start to feel the pressure. Like if you don't know the steps of the fitness routine, you are screwed.
I can't remember the order of anything to save my life.
Towards the end of the 2 weeks, it's the semifinals. The girls have no idea that the big news from Washington is about to turn everything upside down. That's where we pick up the story with Shima during rehearsal.
I'm so slap happy right now.
It's the second to last day of the competition.
Yeah, I'm feeling tired. You know what I do? I am like, I deep back.
The pressure is really on now. You might expect the girls to be steely and silent, laser focused, but that's not exactly the vibe in rehearsal.
So she currently has an Oreo on her face and she's trying to slide it down to get in her mouth without it dropping to the floor. Open your mouth! Oh.
Friendships are just at an all-time high.
Double check. If you accidentally brought your phone, you just hand it to your mom and say, I had a lose.
Even head mom Carol telling them to hand over their cell phones can't break the vibe.
Why are you so amazing?
Like, I want to be you guys.
I want to be you, bro.
Stop.
I can't speak for everyone else, but for me, like, anywhere I looked, all of them were my friends at that point. There wasn't a state or a girl that I wasn't comfortable with.
That's Amy from Tennessee. But tonight, it's the semifinals. The show will begin with 50 possible winners, and by the end of the night, that number will be down to 8. Yet, for the moment, they're all here together, rehearsing one last new routine as a group.
We're just going to take out the first one of these. Slide, bump, bump, slide, bump, bump.
In rehearsal, the girls are scattered around the stage, still practicing their closing number.
And so I was sitting on the 3rd row of the bleachers on stage left, and one of our day moms peeks her head out.
Day moms are volunteers who help out. Caitlin from Montana sees one of them in the wings.
She goes, Caitlin, is Lydia anywhere? There's a message for her.
The mom is searching for Lydia from Kansas.
I wouldn't deliver bad news, but they told me to get to her as soon as possible.
And so Lydia ran off stage into the wing, and I can see her reading something off of our day mom's phone. And then Lydia turns around and gives me 2 big thumbs up. And I take that as the sign that we got the news we were hoping for.
Kansas runs towards Montana.
So I'm on stage.
All right, welcome to the diamond. 5, 6, ready, walk. 1.
And we're doing our number.
Tennessee's in the middle of blocking the routine when she sees something going on with Montana and Kansas.
And then out of the corner of my eye, I see just this big commotion. And Caitlin and Lydia are hugging each other.
We're trying to not be too obnoxious. We're trying to contain our excitement.
And then there's tears.
She's just crying hysterically.
Montana and Kansas are both standing there crying as a few girls look on.
I can't believe it.
I get off the stage for something and I see Montana like sobbing. And I'm like, what is going on? And Pennsylvania's trying to comfort her. And I'm like, okay, what is happening right now?
Happy news.
Yay.
God is very good. God is very, 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 very good. Someone's cancer free.
Oh. That's so sweet. That makes me want to cry. People were saying that like either like a friend or family member is like cancer free. And I'm like, oh, okay, good. Like that's amazing.
That's precious. I give you a hug.
And I am just doing my own thing.
Tennessee.
And then I hear little whispers. People are freaking out. And so now I'm interested. I walk over to a group. I couldn't even tell you who. And I asked them, so what are we all freaking out about? So apparently Lydia,
that's Kansas,
had some type of like code that she got sent.
The code, which was supposedly info about their sick friend, was really breaking news. The Supreme Court had just issued their Dobbs v. Jackson decision on abortion rights.
Lydia came up with the code of, we're renaming Roe v. Wade Jennifer.
That's Montana.
And Jennifer is either going to go to the emergency room if Roe v. Wade didn't get overturned, or Jennifer is cancer-free if Roe v. Wade did get overturned.
Of course, Roe v. Wade did get overturned. The mom who was delivering the news must have had no idea about the secret code.
We know that not everyone believes the same on this very contentious issue. It's an issue very near and dear to our hearts, so we wanted to know, but in case anyone else felt completely opposite or didn't want to know, we just wanted to be respectful of everyone here.
Yeah. You put it very nicely.
Yes.
Tennessee is taking all this in.
I was just like, this is tea. Like, that is wild. Like, that it was like sent through code. That was the like thing on my mind.
The news starts to spread.
It was more of like a very fast like group game of like telephone, you know. It just like beep beep blah blah blah. I think Lydia might have told a couple people, and I might have told a couple people.
And one of the people Montana told was New Mexico.
We're all very confused on what's going on, but we don't want to be like too nosy either. But I mean, if you see somebody crying hysterically, you kind of want to know what happened. So I go over to Caitlin and I ask her what's wrong. And she kind of just tells me, she's like, yes, everything's fine. Roe v. Wade got overturned. And she just kind of started crying to me, but happy. So I kind of looked at her and I was like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and remove myself from the situation just because I don't want to do anything I'll regret.
Most of the girls still haven't heard the news. They're all gathered together in the lobby to meet with a few former national winners, what they call has-beens.
And one of the has-beens gets up in front of us.
2018's national winner, Arian Morrison.
I step up, I introduce myself, and I said, I also just want to acknowledge that in light of today's Supreme Court decision, I want you all to know that I'm a resource, I'm a support. I can't make things better. I can't offer words of encouragement, but at least I can mourn and be angry with you.
Which is when it dawns on Arian that a lot of the girls do not know what she's talking about.
A lot of girls look at each other, and then one girl goes, what are you talking about? We don't have our phones.
Arizona is one of the girls who still has no clue.
I was like, what Supreme Court decision? Like, what is she talking about?
Tennessee.
And I'm looking around and I instantly feel a shift in the room. And you could just feel the energy change.
I couldn't help but think how if any of the girls in that room had not made it to nationals, they would have experienced this moment so differently. Back home with their friends, their families, people who likely felt like they did when they heard the news. Instead, they were trapped in what must have been the only place in America where that day, one girl from every state was forced to face this decision together in real time.
Up next, how the Supreme Court decision to overturn Roe v. Wade suddenly changes the dynamics at the competition.
I think it just created a divide that we didn't know that we had. It's going to be pretty tough to work through.
You're listening to Reveal.
This show is supported by Progressive Insurance. Progressive Insurance, home of Snapshot, offering a personalized rate on car insurance based on safe driving habits. More at progressive.com or 1-800-PROGRESSIVE. Snapshot is not available in California or from all agents.
Support comes from UT Health Houston, home to Dr. Mary Aitken, who is focused on keeping children safe from preventable injuries through research, education, and advocacy. More at uth.edu/manyfaces.
Your right to know what's really going on in our world depends on more than just great journalism. It depends on your participation.
Houston Public Media is funded by Houstonians for Houstonians. 80% of our budget comes directly from you, our community.
That's how trusted information stays free and accessible. No ads, no shareholders, just clear and careful reporting.
Protect your right to stay informed by visiting HoustonPublicMedia.org/donate or call 888-909-0887.
Support comes from electricityplans.com, helping Houstonians find electricity plans based on home energy usage with tools to compare rates. Enrollment details and more at electricityplans.com.
From the Center for Investigative Reporting and PRX, this is Reveal. I'm Al Letson. Today, we're bringing back a story from Shima Oliaee, host of the 6-part podcast series, The Competition. It's just hours before the 2022 Distinguished Young Women semifinals. In any other year, the girls will be laser focused on getting ready. They'd be practicing their routines, memorizing their lines, calming their nerves. But right now, the vibe is off. The girls are distracted. Some are ecstatic, others feel betrayed. Most of them are unable to think about anything but the news that the Supreme Court has just overturned Roe v. Wade. Shima picks up the story.
I have no idea where the moms are.
That's Montana.
It's just all sitting in the lobby, processing everything.
Quickly after hearing the news, the girls start splitting up into groups.
We got like very distinct groups.
California.
A lot of the states that were more left-leaning, and then a smaller group to the side of like, I think those who were like pretty right-leaning and like vocal about it.
Picture a big civic center lobby. Conservative girls on one side, liberal girls on the other. And in the middle, a bunch of girls who feel torn or don't know where to go or who to turn to.
Come from a really conservative family.
Maryland.
Conservative religion, but they always let me have my own opinion, which I'm just grateful for. And I just try and reward everyone else the same respect that my family gave me.
They should have just never said it at all.
Colorado is worried about how the added stress is going to weigh on the girls.
I didn't want it to affect people's mental health because this was already mentally taxing in the first place, and now you're adding this news on top of it.
I think I just created a divide that we didn't know that we had. And it's going to be pretty tough to work through, especially when emotions are running so high. So I hope that everyone can keep it in, but I don't know.
The girls now see something in each other, these deeper differences that they didn't before. Or at least they could pretend they didn't before.
Something that we avoided, or at least some of us tried to avoid.
California.
Because it's hard once you like start talking about it. You can obviously like have those conversations and like they're not charged with like violence and anger, but like it's harder to then get back to being like friends and happy and good again.
Some of the girls, like Tennessee, were still struggling to understand what the decision even meant and why so many of the girls were so upset.
I feel out of the loop. Like, I feel as if everyone knows what's going on, and I don't. I couldn't even choose which side I was on, you know? I really just want to know why everyone's so upset so I can comfort them.
Tennessee turns to the girls in the liberal circle and starts asking questions.
I was like, okay, so, like, what's happening? Like, what does overturned mean?
What is Roe v. Wade being overturned mean?
So, have you heard of the Supreme Court?
Yes, but I don't know what the term overturned.
So, basically now women have lost all their reproductive rights. Okay, but Roe v.
Kirthana from Minnesota starts to explain.
What it means when something's overturned means that a case came up in Mississippi that said that women cannot have abortions after a certain time period. Sure. That went from the state court to the Court of Appeals to the Supreme Court. Yeah. And they were like, Mississippi, you're okay. You can take away women's rights.
And so they're talking about how terrifying it is and how upsetting it is that they just lost the rights to their body. And so I kind of get it now. I sit there and I'm like, oh yeah, I guess we did just lose the right to that.
On the other side of the room, another girl walks up to the conservative girls and asks Montana to explain the decision.
So what does this mean? This means that the Supreme Court has sent the decision of the abortion issue back to each state to decide respectively, which is what our founders intended.
She's saying it's now up to each state to decide what to do about abortion, which to her is how it should be.
Yes, each state will get to choose.
Montana's politics can't be separated from her personal story. She and her brother were both adopted.
My family is very passionately pro-life, just because of everything that we've been through as a family. Like,
so were you guys both adopted as like infants?
Yes, yeah.
Did your parents ever tell you about the process of adopting?
Yeah, they've told me a little bit about it. I mean, it's a complicated process, but with the circumstances of my conception and my brother, there's a very high chance that we could have been one of those babies who never got to live. It's like our birth mothers made that very selfless decision to give us life that so many other children didn't get.
She's part of an organization called Students for Life, whose mission is to, quote, recruit, train, and mobilize the pro-life generation to abolish abortion. They supported her campaign for state legislature, and this decision could be a great omen for her upcoming campaign.
How this is going to affect my race in the midterms. Legislators are probably calling me. SFL's probably calling me because they're probably going to want to fight me.
You know they are. Fine.
Montana's saying Students for Life is probably going to fly her from Mobile to D.C. to celebrate.
I literally would have been there right now if I wasn't here. And I'm like a little bit heartbroken. But it's okay.
On the other side of the room, the mood is grim. The liberal girls start talking about the Supreme Court. How could this have happened in the first place?
Why don't they have term limits?
Yeah.
The Supreme Court doesn't have term limits.
They don't. They don't stay there until they're done.
I know that there was a lot of protest about Roe v. Wade, and the fact that our Supreme Court saw that and still made their own decision, that's what scares me, you know?
This is the thing that baffles Tennessee. She knows that the majority of people in the country support the right to choose. That's the popular opinion. But the court doesn't seem to care.
And that just makes you think of what else in the future are they going to ignore in order to make the decisions that they want to make, you know? It's kind of scary that knowing that we really don't have a lot of say when it comes to, like, our government, if you think about it.
1 in 4 women have to face a situation regarding abortion, like literally in their lifetime. That's a crazy statistic, because like for me especially.
That's Minnesota, the one who was explaining the decision earlier to Tennessee. She's thought a lot about this.
There's 50 of us here. Just do the math. What's 1 in 4? And now put all of those girls at risk for literally dying. Because like for me,
by Minnesota's math, that's at least 12 of the girls in the lobby. But while she's mourning that, some girls are still celebrating.
So there's girls crying from joy in the back. And like, though I respect people's opinions, I can't talk to you today, please.
A lot of the girls were crying, and I never seen any of them cry before. Like Alabama, Minnesota,
Arizona.
I think I was just numb. I feel like I'm generally a very rational person, and so my first thought is like, we shouldn't panic, like we haven't read the actual decision, like we don't know what the parameters are, like yes.
Arizona was speech and debate captain in high school. She spent 6 years debating all kinds of controversial topics. So she's used to having to intellectualize really messy issues.
And I'd never really been in that many spaces where emotion was acceptable before. I guess in that moment, I realized like the power of emotions. I was feeling it so much from the girls around me, and something in me just shifted. And then I burst in tears and couldn't stop crying.
Back in the lobby, some of the girls are still crying.
y'all to do. We have about 30 minutes. If you would like to go upstairs to your dressing rooms and start getting beautiful and more beautiful than you already are.
Time to wipe up the tears and keep going.
They're like, all right, back at it, girls.
California.
And I'm like, what? I think that it was a very fast turnaround process of like hearing it, grappling with it, and then having to be on again.
The girls shuffle out of the lobby and head backstage to put their competition faces back on for the semifinals. It's just about time to start competing against each other again.
Like, we care about the competition, but it's also like, at the end of the day, like, what are we doing? Like, we're putting on little like balloon dresses and dancing in our heels. I don't know. It's just like, okay, gotta get back to whatever this is now.
California and the rest of the girls might do as they're told. They'll go put their makeup and dresses on. But that doesn't mean they're about to fall in line and just get on with the show. After a very long day, we've arrived at the semifinals. The results from tonight will determine which 8 girls will compete in the finale. Here's how it'll work. DYW's auditors, yeah, they have those guys, like the Oscars, had already tabulated the girls' scores for scholastics and interviews. So tonight, there's just fitness, talent, and self-expression.
Self-expression is there is no one's game.
2 hours before showtime, each girl received the question she'll have to answer on stage. And now, they're obsessively rehearsing their answers.
Next time you're in line at Starbucks, you can thank me for your $7 coffee. Esther Rager, Washington.
You had a great opener and a great closer, and
Thanks.
I liked your hand motion for apples and potatoes.
But not all of them are able to shove aside their feelings and focus.
Everyone, I think today is especially feeling down because of what it means for, our futures. And, the fact that they took away, our choice as women. And, we're in this program, trying to advocate for that and empower women. But it's hard to do that when, our nation is taking away these things. I'm sorry.
All day, I've been wondering if any of the girls would address the Dobbs decision in their self-expression answers. Or if they were wondering, can I even do that without harming my chances of winning some money here? As judges, DYW asks us to separate our political views from our scores. But the girls must know that we're human and probably have thoughts on the matter. All of that was hanging over me as I entered the Mobile Civic Center. And even as a judge, it felt a little distressing to be going on with the show. But that's what we're here to do. So we all stick with the program and try to focus on the task at hand.
Welcome. Are we ready to dive in? Let's meet the judges. Shima Oliaee has been recognized with several national awards, including a George Foster Peabody Award. Shima represented her home state of Nevada in our 2001 national finals. So please welcome Shima Oliaee.
I will say this, Mobile, Alabama really turned out for DYW. All the girls had been written up by the local paper that morning with advertisements for tickets, and it's a packed house behind us.
We're so excited to get this evening started, and one of those reasons is that at the end of tonight's show, we will be presenting the first round of preliminary awards and get one step closer to our 65th national finals tomorrow evening.
We watched the girls do their fitness routines. It looks as brutal and chaotic as I remember. Arizona even accidentally kicks New Mexico in the head. We watch extraordinary talents, flautists and dancers, and a speed painter. And then, as the evening wears on, the girls finally don their self-expression outfits. One at a time, they walk to the center of the stage and stand in front of the mic.
What is something new you learned about yourself during your senior year?
My senior year taught me many valuable lessons. However, the first one that comes to mind is that I am not stuck.
I was astounded to find out that I actually could skate without falling. When you feel like life slaps you in the face, just remember that God has a plan for your life.
All night, not one girl says anything about the decision, either for or against. Except
I knew from the get-go I was going to talk about abortion.
This is Kirthana Ramanathan from Minnesota. She's the one who explained the news to Tennessee earlier in the day. When I was at the competition, I remember the issue of abortion access felt really distant from me. Like, I didn't think I knew anyone who had had an abortion, but you had a really clear understanding of how you felt. Where did that come from?
It came from knowing about it from a medical perspective.
Minnesota's planning to go to med school, so she spent a bunch of time in high school volunteering at a hospital and shadowing a doctor.
You know, I've seen women who come in ecstatic about their pregnancy. I've seen women who come in scared. And with all those experiences, I learned that to be forced to bring a child into this world and know what their life is going to be like because you don't have the financial ability to care for them, I think is a violation of every human right under this planet.
When it's her turn, Minnesota steps up to the mic and looks out at the crowd.
What is something new you learned about yourself during your senior year?
My heart is beating so fast. I'm sweating. I'm hoping my sweat doesn't show on the big screen. But I keep telling myself, if you're gonna have any opportunity to speak to so many women right now in your life, this is it. And I didn't give myself another second to think. I just took a breath and I started.
In my senior year of high school, I learned that everyone truly has their own unique story, making everyone's voice important. In light of the new Supreme Court decision this morning, I find this to be more important than ever. I plan to use my voice, shaped by my own unique story, to advocate for the rights of women everywhere. Because the choices that we make define our stories. Kirthana Ramanathan, Minnesota.
As Minnesota walks off stage, other girls warm up for talent. Soon, it'll be Arizona's turn. She's going to do a dance routine, but has an injured foot and is feeling insecure.
I've thought this is my weakest portion of competition the whole time. People told me that I'm a great technical dancer, but I struggle to emote.
Dancing to this woman's work, here is Caitlin Kai from Arizona.
Arizona takes her spot center stage.
I couldn't continue on as normal. Like, in my brain, there was pre the decision and post the decision, and I was just different after I knew. So I might as well use it to express myself in a way that feels true to me and true to the way that I'm feeling.
I have to say, you could see the feeling as she danced. She looked strong and confident, not at all like someone who has trouble conveying emotion. And there was something else too, something drawn on the palm of her right hand.
I Sharpied just like the female gender sign on my hand, more for me than anybody else.
And when she steps forward for her final pose,
I was supposed to have my hands go up and then throw them down to my sides. But I chose to change the routine because of what I had written on my hand. So I end with my hand forward like this and one hand on my heart.
She's holding the women symbol out to the audience. And the look on her face?
I think it was the emotion that I felt, but also just the collective emotion. Like, I've never experienced something like that.
Watching from the wings, several of the girls see Arizona's final pose. And backstage, they crowd around her.
That was so cool.
Okay, I want to try it.
Can I have another one?
One grabs a Sharpie and draws the women's symbol on her wrist. Then another. They start passing the Sharpie around.
And then, like, people are, like, lining up.
California.
And coming to the Sharpie to get the symbol.
Are we doing wrist or fists?
I was kind of like, here's my hand. Like, give me the pen. Like, let me write it right now.
New Mexico doesn't think twice about joining in.
And all of the girls are passing around the marker and making sure that we all have that symbol in our hand, except for the ones that are happy about this ruling.
One of the backstage moms tunes into what's going on. She comes up behind New Mexico, who's drawing furiously with the Sharpie, and grabs it out of her hand.
No, she literally just took it out of someone's hand.
She's very upset with us, like angry. She like snatches the Sharpie and just like walks away. And then we're like, okay, you, and then we use eyeliner.
Honestly, this is what they should be expecting, getting like the most political girls around the country in one place.
Once they have the symbol on their wrists, the next question is, what do we do now? A handful of girls start forming a plan.
Right hand?
Right hand. Just put your right hand up at the end and show your wrist.
Left hand. Doesn't matter. Can you draw that? Who's going to start it? Julianne, let's start. Okay, I need to look at me too.
Arizona tells the girls that she and Minnesota will signal when to lift their fists to the audience once they're all on stage for the final bow.
When they say good night, everyone.
Got it.
Yeah, we have to wait until the teleprompter runs dry because we don't want to take away from anybody's words. Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Be like, good night. Good night.
Up high. Straight up high. Up high.
Across the wings, word reaches Tennessee.
They're telling us to draw a women's symbol on our wrist, and before the curtains come down, like, raise your wrist as our way of saying we respect women's rights, and we think that Roe v. Wade being overturned goes against that.
There were some girls who don't share my same view on the issue and who were kind of upset.
Montana.
There's a number of girls back there that I'm talking with. It's like, no, why would we do that? That sounds really stupid to us. We're supposed to be on stage as 50 distinguished young women, so let's not put on any political displays of our own opinions.
There was definitely just two different vibes going on backstage. Some people are snickering about it, and some people, like myself, just wanted to stay out of it.
When the girls with their Sharpie symbols reach their spots on the risers, they each look out over the crowd, smiling, waiting for the signal.
Thank you all for being an amazing audience and supporters of these young women, and we can't wait to see you back here tomorrow night.
See you tomorrow.
Thank you, and good night.
The teleprompter runs dry. That's their cue. Minnesota punches her fist up into the sky alongside Arizona, Colorado, California, and New Mexico, with other girls following suit.
There are some girls just smiling and waving.
Tennessee.
And then there are some girls who are standing firm.
I think it was also really powerful to have so many of us do it.
Arizona.
Because it was like, you can't take out everybody.
Once we raised our hands, the curtain closed so fast.
California.
They were like, pull the curtain. And it just shut on us.
A bunch of people in the crowd are cheering. A bunch are not.
I didn't want DYW to turn into a very political thing where we seem like all these girls seem divided, and I don't want to be defined by this one moment.
It's been a day for Tennessee. Just hours ago, she was so happy about what great friends they'd all become. She was hoping they could hang on to that she could choose both sides, upset nobody. But that's not always possible.
Then, when it actually comes down to it, I half raised my wrist, so I probably look stupid. I should have just done it all the way or kept my hand down.
For the girls who did raise their hands, it's a victory, however small.
We may be teenagers, but we are still able to portray a message if we try.
If there was any way that I wanted to close tonight, this is the perfect way to do it, to really stand for what I believe in. So it is probably the best moment in this entire experience, for sure.
I think this is definitely one of my favorite moments of the competition, just because it wasn't about the competition, it was about something bigger than DOW, bigger than ourselves. Even though it wasn't a massive thousands of people protest, it was something.
It might seem like a small thing, but after 2 weeks of following every rule, having every moment planned, they chose to go off script. None of them knew how it would affect them here, but they did it anyway.
It just makes me feel like we're really distinguished young women. This matters to us.
The competition is almost over. Tomorrow, the winner will be chosen by the judges, then she, along with the rest of the girls, will head home and eventually on to college. But what just happened will linger with many of the girls and even change the trajectory of their lives.
Because of DYW and after DYW, I make a conscious effort to trust people who I'm not naturally inclined to trust.
That's next on Reveal.
Houston Public Media presents the Moth Grand Slam, June 10th at the Heights Theater. Doors open at 7 p.m. It's the Grand Slam Championship, a battle of wits and words. Tickets at houstonpublicmedia.org/The Moth.
Support comes from Holocaust Museum Houston, featuring Ilan Ramon, A Life and Legacy, exploring the first Israeli astronaut's family history and his soaring achievements in air and space. Now through August 3rd. Details at hmh.org.
Houston Public Media exists for those in our community in Southeast Texas. We appreciate our visionary supporters for enabling us to be the essential source for independent journalism and programs that inform, inspire, and engage all Houstonians. Jenny and Mike Conway, Judith and Mark Cook, Carolyn and Platt Davis, Janice and George Fleming, Amanda and Morris Gelb, Maria and Rex Gray, and Cynthia Holliday. Thank you.
From the Center for Investigative Reporting and PRX, this is Reveal. I'm Al Letson. The day after some of the girls protested about the Supreme Court decision, Shima, Oliaee, and the other judges watched the top 8 scorers compete for one last time, and then...
Okay, the winner of a $40,000 cash scholarship in our 65th Distinguished Young Woman of America is...
Nope. We're not going to tell you who won. If you want to know, you have to listen to Shima's 6-part podcast series, The Competition. But we are going to tell you what happened after. In the months and years after those 2 weeks in Mobile, Shima stayed in touch with the girls, even visited some of them. She wanted to know how they were doing in college and if what happened at the DYW competition changed them. Her first stop was in Knoxville to see
Amy Pham, Tennessee.
When I visited Amy, she'd moved away from home and was attending college at the University of Tennessee.
This is like my best friend. This is an eyelash curler, and it does wonders to watch.
We were in Amy's dorm room when she told me about a presentation she was about to give in Sociology 101 on an issue she didn't know much about when she was at DYW.
Okay, y'all, so today we're going to be talking about abortion as a social problem in Benton.
So why did you rank abortion number 1?
I think I had the most to say about it.
Why?
I've never thought about abortion before DYW. Like, I had an answer ready in case y'all asked me, but, like, I sound so ignorant. But I was, like, wondering why girls were crying. But then I was like, Amy, you sound like an idiot because, like, our rights just got taken away. Of course they're going to cry about it, you know? And that's when I was just like, that does not feel right to me. And I just had so much to say about it because there's a gray area that people aren't addressing. They're just, like, one way or the other, pro-life or pro-choice, but it's more than that.
At the competition, Amy found herself balancing her ambition to be the best and her need to be liked. But she's starting to think about that a little differently.
Like, presidents get hated on, governors get hated on, but these are the decision makers. So when you have haters, that's how you know you made it.
Salma Barragan, New Mexico.
Salma Barragan got a full ride to New Mexico State University. We met up with her at the U.S.-Mexico border at an event called Hugs Not Walls. In November of 2022, the U.S. government temporarily opened up a border patrol area to allow families to reunite for 3 minutes at a time. Salma volunteered there, along with her mom, helping organize and guide families throughout the day.
Did you just hear that? Oh my God. Little girl screaming mom across the border. That's crazy. Love you, mommy.
Her mom's volunteered at this event before, but this is the first time Salma participated. Why did you decide to participate this year?
I've gone to protests, but this one was like very challenging, and I think I was finally able to do it because I'm a little older now and I'm a little stronger and I could probably deal with it a little bit better than I would have those previous years.
At least part of that getting stronger was thanks to DYW. Her mom said those 2 weeks changed her.
More mature, ¿cómo se dice? Más lejos, solita. By yourself. Y more tiempo, more time.
More time. So that trip was the longest I've been away from home by myself and the farthest I've been away from home. So when I came back, I felt a little bit more prepared for life and I felt a little bit more mature on what and what I experienced.
Soon after last year's election, I also called the girl who came up with the idea to Sharpie the women's symbol on her hand in protest of the Supreme Court decision. She'll be a senior at Duke University this fall. Hi.
Hello.
Long time no see.
I know. How many months has it been? Too many.
It's been 2 years.
Yes.
I feel like every time I see you, it's like a dramatic moment in history, but I guess maybe that's every day. On the day after the election, when it was clear Donald Trump had won, I logged onto social media and read a piece she'd written. It kind of floored me.
I had been up until probably like 1:30, 2 a.m. in the morning. Couldn't sleep, and then I just decided to write.
Can you just read to me the question that you posed at the start of the piece?
Sure. By 5:36 a.m. this morning, former President Donald J. Trump had enough electoral college votes to be our next president of the United States. By the end of the week, he will also likely win the popular vote, a feat he did not even accomplish in 2016. Why?
And the way that Caitlin answered this question in her piece was unlike anything else I read that morning. She goes on.
The millions who voted for Trump believe they don't have a place in America. And for all the ads and canvassing, we didn't change their minds. They are not evil and they are not stupid. They are human and they are my friends, colleagues, and mentors. They believe their promised America is more inclusive, successful, and strong, and they want us to believe in it with them.
Caitlin's writing struck me as a plea to her peers, but it also felt like a message to the girls in the competition, inviting them to reflect on this moment with her. I thought it was brave. Braver than even holding up that women's symbol at DYW. Were you scared at all to share it?
I know there are people from across the aisle that follow me, and I wanted to write something that showed that I cared about them, but that I maybe didn't understand them in this moment. And also was an invitation for them to reach out to me. I wanted to hold myself accountable to understanding people, and I wanted other people to try and do the same.
Caitlin voted Democrat, but she says the election results made her look at her party in a new light.
The Democratic Party is now perceived as the party of elites. And I don't think I was an elite growing up. I'm the kid of immigrants. I grew up upper middle class. Like, my parents fought for their American dream. But just by the virtue of fact that I go to an elite university, like, I've now ascended into this echelon of American society that very few people get access to. And we just think and talk so incredibly differently than the rest of America.
When I'd met Caitlin at the competition, she was planning to major in public policy. But recently, she decided to axe that and created her own major.
And it's called Social and Public Trust in the Digital Age. So I'm very interested in the relationships between people, media, and institutions, and what makes us mistrust them.
Were you interested in trust before DYW, and then that DYW just presented you the Roe v. Wade day? But or did it trigger something?
I think DYW was one of the strongest communities that I had ever experienced, and one that was built very, very fast with a very, very diverse group of people. Because of DYW and after DYW, and make a conscious effort to trust people who I'm not naturally inclined to trust. And sure, like, sometimes I've gotten burned, but I also have built some really valuable, incredible relationships. And I think that allows me to then be able to kind of trust in the future of the country, trust in these bigger institutions, trust in systems, because I practice it on the day-to-day. And these next 4 years, like, whether or not you voted for Donald Trump, are going to be very volatile. And trust doesn't mean you don't hold people accountable or that you take things lying down, but trust is like extending an olive branch. It's just giving people the chance to prove themselves. It's going to be really easy to be cynical and nihilistic, but the world is a better place when we're not.
Thank you for trusting me to get on this call.
I'm also happy to.
Oh my
God, yeah, reunion. Oh my God. At the start of my second trip to Mobile, this time as a grown woman, I didn't know what to expect. I knew that the competition asked the girls, as teenagers, what do you stand for? But what happened in 2022 woke up the girls in ways no one could predict. And seeing what they're doing with their lives helps me see our country in a way that all the books and articles and news reports never could. To Caitlin and Salma and Amy and all the girls of DYW, thank you for reminding me we can grow up, we can even change, and the journey can be joyful.
Oh, there's so many tears.
Dude, I never cried. I was just saying that I never had friends, like that many friends during high school. And I came here and I just got new best friends. Like I'm so much sadder leaving here than I ever did like my high school graduation. Like I just feel so valued here.
Okay, one last thing before I go.
La 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 Elmo's World.
Your mom.
When you were about to say that where you went to college,
That story was from Shima Oliaee, reporter, producer, and host of the 6-part series The Competition from Wondery and Pineapple Street Studios in collaboration with Sherazade Productions. You can find the full series wherever you get your podcasts. The entire show is a roller coaster ride. From The Competition, thanks to senior producers Courtney Harrell, Justine Dom, Claire Chambers, Stephanie Wakneem, associate producer Mari Orozco, editor Maddie Sprung-Kaiser, and senior engineer Davey Sumner. This week's episode was produced by Anayansi Diaz-Cortez. Taki Telenidis edited the show. Our production manager is the amazing Zulema Cobb. Score and sound design by Davey Sumner and Sarah Kinsley. Additional music by the dynamic duo Jay Breezy, Mr. Jim Briggs, and Fernando, my man, Yo Aruda. Our interim executive producers are Brett Myers and Taki Telenidis. Our theme music is by Camarado, Lightning. Support for Reveals provided by the Reva and David Logan Foundation, the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation, the Jonathan Logan Family Foundation, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, the Park Foundation, the Schmidt Family Foundation, and the Hellman Foundation. Support for Reveal is also provided by you, our listeners. We are a co-production of the Center for Investigative Reporting and PRX. I'm Al Letson. And remember, there is always more to the story.
From PRX. Support comes from Blake Hillegeist Real Estate, independent commercial and residential real estate broker with over 30 years experience guiding clients through economic downturns, realty challenges, and everyday life situations. More at BlakeSellsHouston.com.
We believe in your right to free information. Help protect trusted news that keeps us all informed by supporting Houston Public Media. Stand up for your right to information. Give today at HoustonPublicMedia.org or call 888-909-0887.
Join us for Hello Houston, weekdays from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., taking a deep dive into the stories that matter to Houstonians, keeping you informed, engaged, and entertained, with a generous support from our founding sponsor, John Bradshaw.
Your NPR station, News 88.7 KUHF Houston, a service of the University of Houston. Get local and breaking news anytime at HoustonPublicMedia.org. Listen to us on your favorite devices. Tell your smart speaker to play News 88.7.
Welcome to NewsHour from the BBC World Service. I'm Lise Doucette. Reports that the U.S. may fund a controversial aid agency in Gaza. We asked the reporter who broke the story if that was surprising.
It wasn't a complete surprise simply because the United States, the Trump administration, has expressed considerable support for the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation.
Some members of the U.S. Democratic Party believe they need new young faces. We'll hear what they believe they need to do to win next time.
We will win just as those who came before us did. We will win that those who come after us, that they expect, that they deserve. This is a time when we will stand up and say we understood the assignment.
And a statue of Lenin is brought down in Kyrgyzstan after 50 years. What took them so long? All that and more after the latest world news.
Hello, I'm Moira Alderson with the BBC News. There's been another shooting near a US and Israeli-backed aid distribution centre in southern Gaza. The Hamas-run Civil Defence Agency said 6 Palestinians were killed and several wounded by Israeli gunfire. Israel's military said it fired warning shots at suspects who approached in a threatening manner. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which runs the facilities, says it's now closing this site, as Barbara Platasha reports.
They had said they were pausing distribution in order to deal with some of the flaws in the system, so they hadn't expected the masses of people that came, and they needed to reorganize and repair the sites. They also wanted to improve safety features, they're reportedly having conversations with the Israeli army to improve civilian safety. But now what they're saying is that they got direct threats from Hamas against their centers, and so they suspended operations. A Hamas official has responded basically saying, I don't know what they're talking about, we have no knowledge of this.
Donald Trump has warned Elon Musk of very serious consequences if he funds Democratic candidates to run against Republicans who vote in favour of the president's sweeping budget bill. Mr. Trump added that he assumed his relationship with his former advisor was over. These Trump voters in Pennsylvania gave their reactions to the breakdown of the Trump-Musk friendship.
I don't like the man at all. I don't like him at all. I really think he should be deported. I do. I don't think that's ever going to happen.
I always took it as Elon wanted to be the president anyway, so there could only be one. And you know Trump ain't giving up none of his power, so I kind of figured sooner or later they was going to have a fallout.
I think they both have too big egos, so they're like two little kids fighting. And it's playing out on public stage.
Donald Trump has said he was not involved in the decision to return a man from El Salvador, where he'd been wrongly deported, to face charges in the US. On Friday, the US Attorney General said Kilma Abrego Garcia would be flown back and charged with transporting illegal immigrants. Russia has again struck the northeastern Ukrainian city of Kharkiv, this time during the day on Saturday, following overnight attacks. Officials say 4 guided bombs hit central areas, killing a woman and injuring at least 19 other people. At least 3 people were killed and more than 20 wounded overnight. Here's Danny Eberhard.
One of the places caught in the latest strikes was the site of a children's railway. Officials have posted photos and video of emergency workers treating casualties, some badly wounded, at the scene or carrying them into ambulances. President Zelensky has called the attacks on civilians pure terrorism. He said that no matter what anyone said, the strikes were meant just to destroy, rejecting the notion that they were in response to anything.
Danny Eberhard reporting. World News from the BBC. The Taliban have urged Afghans hoping to emigrate to the United States to return home after the Trump administration announced a travel ban. The Taliban Prime Minister Hassan Akhund said even those who'd worked with American forces for years would not face any trouble or abuse in Afghanistan. However, the United Nations says it's recorded hundreds of cases of extrajudicial killings and detentions and abuses of former Afghan government officials. The renowned British scientist and broadcaster David Attenborough has said he's appalled by the damage certain fishing methods are wreaking on the world's oceans. Sir David said if anything remotely similar had been done on land, everybody would be up in arms. He made his comments in conversation with Prince William ahead of a key UN Oceans Conference which starts in France on Monday. Our reporter Pierre-Antoine Denis is in Nice.
Sea levels are rising at a rate that is unexpected. The ocean is getting warmer than ever before, according to the scientists who have been measuring it in the 1960s. And that also leads to an increase in the acidity level of the ocean. And that, as a result, has put many marine species in extinction. Over 1,500 species are now in extinction threat in the medium term.
The online influencer and self-declared misogynist Andrew Tate has been fined and suspended from driving after being caught in Romania doing nearly 4 times the speed limit. Officials say the British-American national was driving at nearly 200 kilometres an hour in a village, despite a 50 kilometre an hour limit. The American tennis player Coco Gauff has won the French Open after beating Aryna Sabalenka in the final in Paris. Both players battled windy conditions before world number one Sabalenka won a marathon 77-minute first set. But Gauff then took the next two to win her first French Open title on the clay of Roland Garros. BBC News.
Hello and welcome to NewsHour from the BBC World Service. We're coming to you live from our studio in London. I'm Lise Doucette. We start in Gaza. There has been more violence today near the new aid distribution centre run by a controversial new agency, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, or GFF, which is backed by Israel and the United States. Reports from Gaza from the Civil Defense Agency say 6 Palestinians were killed and several wounded by Israeli gunfire. The Israeli military says it did fire warning shots at suspects, it said, who approached them in a threatening manner. Over the past week, dozens of people have been killed while trying to reach these new aid hubs. The organisation running the facilities, which has faced international criticism, says it's paused operations to deal with overcrowding and to improve safety. And there's also been more violence across Gaza today. Let's go to Jerusalem to join our correspondent, Barbara Plett-Usher. Barbara, are there more details about what happened today? Because it seems that there is violence almost every time there is a distribution of aid by GFF.
That's a fair question, Lise. It's a particular aid distribution site where the violence has taken place, or most of the violence has taken place. And this is in southern Gaza, where Palestinians, they gather at a roundabout, which is in order to wait until the aid site opens. And it's at the edge of an Israeli military zone, and they have to cross through this Israeli military zone to get to the aid site. So they're placed in sort of proximity with Israeli soldiers that they normally wouldn't be. And there's thousands of them, in some cases tens of thousands from what we understand. So it's quite a volatile situation. And earlier in the week, there were dozens of Palestinians killed and hundreds injured while they were navigating this route to the aid site. And some measures had been attempted to try to make it safer. So the foundation closed its site for a while to do repairs and renovations, it said. Because they have a lot of overcrowding, as they called it, at the aid sites, they do get hordes of people in, hungry people who are desperately grabbing the aid, and also that they wanted to improve civilian safety measures as the Palestinians were coming to the site. The Israelis also put out a notice saying don't come at night, don't come between 6 in the evening and 6 in the morning, because it's an active combat zone then. So we're not entirely sure when this latest incident happened, but there were a number of people killed and a number injured, and as you said, the Israelis said they fired warning shots.
I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there, Barbara, and I know you've been also reporting that in the violence today, the Israelis say they killed the head of the Mujahideen brigades. We hope to report on that later on the BBC World Service. Well, we're going to stay with the GHF because the news agency Reuters is reporting, quoting what it described as two knowledgeable but anonymous sources, that the U.S. State Department is weighing giving $500 million to the foundation. It would involve it more deeply in this aid effort that the UN and other aid agencies are refusing to work with, saying it violates humanitarian principles. The Axios News website has also reported on this story, quoting its anonymous sources. Well, we spoke to Jonathan Landay of Reuters about his story. Was he surprised when he heard it?
I was somewhat taken aback, but it wasn't a complete surprise, simply because the United States, the Trump administration, has expressed considerable support for the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. The executive chairman of this foundation is an evangelical Christian preacher who is pretty close to President Trump and has actually backed his proposal for the United States to take over Gaza. And the United States, as well as Israel, have been encouraging the UN and NGOs, non-governmental organizations, to support and work with the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which of course they have refused. And so, no, I wasn't completely surprised by this.
Your article also mentions that the plan is meeting resistance from some U.S. officials concerned because there have been deadly shootings around the distribution sites. Can you sense the balance of those who are for and those who are against?
No, it's very hard to do that simply because I'm relying on anonymous sources. That's the only way you can really report this kind of story in Washington now. But the fact is that I am told that the main champion of this is a man who has been involved in the dismantling of USAID. He is a senior person in what's left of USAID, and I suspect that because of his position, he may in fact win out in the end. But there are some U.S. officials, I am told, who are opposed to this, or at least resistant to it, for a whole number of reasons. And you mentioned one, which is the shootings that have taken place around the distribution sites. And curiously enough, there was an interview published with the head of the GHF today by ABC News, in which he said that some of the killings were due to the IDF, to the Israeli Defense Force, which is the first acknowledgement I've heard, whereas others have been blamed on Hamas, which denies it. That's one reason. There's also a deep concern about the professionalism of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation because of the chaos that has taken place in the distribution of aid. Their distribution points are closed again today. GHS says because of threats by Hamas. Hamas denies that. And we've seen video of the utter chaos that has taken place at these distribution points when they have been operating. And there's also a concern by these officials of what other humanitarian organizations and the UN have said is kind of a militarized model for aid distribution that violates international aid principles. Now, whether their resistance to giving this money to the GHF actually results in the money not going is an open question.
It's interesting that you mentioned that the head of the GHF has given an interview. I think that is the first interview, because there has been also a real concern about the lack of transparency in terms of accountability, in terms of who's funding it. That's your understanding as well?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, he gave this interview to ABC News. They do say it is the first interview he has given. And he was asked about the funding for GHF that has taken place so far, and he declined to answer that question.
Jonathan Landay, who's the U.S. National Security Correspondent for the Reuters news agency. And at NewsHour, we've also repeatedly requested an interview with the GHF, but now they say they've not been available, at least up to now. This week, the World Health Organization, the WHO, has been calling for urgent protection for 2 of the last remaining hospitals in Gaza. It said there were no hospitals functioning in the north, and the 2 in the south were at risk because of restrictions by Israel on aid and access. What's it like to be a doctor working there? Dr. Victoria Rose, a British plastic surgeon working for the British charity Ideals, has just returned to London from Gaza, her 3rd time working there. When she came into our NewsHour studio, I asked her what it was like this time.
I think this is the worst time we've ever been, and it's certainly the worst condition I've ever seen the population in. The last time we were in was in the August, and quite a lot of the infrastructure had been destroyed at that stage, so there was a bit more, but the big difference, I think, was the population. They've all lost a lot of weight. There's a lot of muscle wasting, fat loss. They all have signs of malnutrition. Everyone that we know has lost at least 5-10 kilos in weight now. I think what we noticed more this time was the morale has really dropped to an all-time low. And I really did feel that good old Palestinian resilience is running out very fast now.
Because your Palestinian colleagues keep showing up.
I know, I can't believe them. And some of them are travelling from miles to get to the hospital.
And what's it like in the hospitals? There's been reports that we hear about shortages in the hospital too.
Well, since the 2nd of March, it's not just the food aid that hasn't got in, it's the medical aid as well. So we were running low on everything, really. Most of the time we would do a sort of scrap heap challenge style approach to things and try and get by using other items. But there were some items that were getting very difficult. So the scalpel blades that we use, we were running out of, and they'd started re-sterilising them, which is not ideal for lots of reasons. The big things that really affected us, though, was antibiotics and anaesthetic agents. So we only had 3 types of antibiotics left at NASA, and that's gentamicin, meropenem and a cephalosporin. And then the anaesthetic agents, we didn't have a lot of anything, and so everybody's operation would start with a trial of sedation, and we would see whether we could get through it just on sedation, unless we knew that the procedure was going to be in excess of an hour. It was quite barbaric, really, but it was necessary because we just didn't have the drugs.
It must just take everything out of you. People arrive in pain, and then pain doesn't stop ever because you don't have
The worst thing was listening to the children crying in the recovery area because we didn't have enough anaesthetic to give them, enough painkillers.
Did you feel, because, I mean, there are many Palestinian journalists, sadly many have lost their lives as well, but international journalists can't get in. Did you think that telling the world what was happening was also part of your job?
I did on this mission. We've not really been quite as vocal as we have been. And in the past, we were much more concerned about whether publicity would prevent us from accessing Gaza again. But I think this time we'd felt that so much was being denied, and I think the turning point for me was the GHF incident when
Gaza Humanitarian Foundation,
when they actually came out and said we haven't shot anyone, and I was standing in the emergency department with 28 dead bodies around me thinking, I have to speak out about this because you're not seeing what I'm seeing.
A letter has been sent by medical staff to the British government. What is your message to them from you and your colleagues?
I think we need 2 things, really. We need a ceasefire imminently to stop any further loss of life. But what we really need is access. We need aid at scale to enter Israel from multiple different entry points to be delivered to the population by partners that have shown in the past that they are capable of doing this. And we also need the critical services that people like UNRWA, UNICEF, the World Food Organization can and have provided. And that is imminently needed to prevent the loss of thousands and thousands of lives.
What's your worst fear?
That people continue to ignore this situation and the limited amount of time that we have left to stop it.
Dr. Victoria Rose, a British plastic surgeon who's just returned from 3.5 weeks working under difficult conditions in Gaza.
Support comes from Oliaee Theatre, presenting Private Lives. When divorced couple Elliot and Amanda accidentally find themselves honeymooning with their new spouses in adjacent rooms, sparks fly and tempers flare with passion and humor through June 15. More at allietheatre.org.
Support comes from Carr, Riggs & Ingram, CPAs and Advisors, a top 25 nationally ranked full-service accounting and advisory firm offering tax, audit, accounting, consulting, and advisory services. Learn more at cricpa.com.
What you hear on this station, every report, every interview, every update, is only here because someone like you gave.
80% of Houston Public Media's funding comes from Houstonians like you. Our newsroom runs on support from you, our community.
You have the right to know what's going on, and you have the power to make sure others do too.
Join the community right now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 888-909-0887.
Listen to NewsHour on the BBC World Service. Now for a closer look at the state of our oceans. Climate change, plastic pollution, the overuse of marine resources are creating an unprecedented crisis, so says the United Nations. It's hosting a conference in France next week with 70 heads of state expected to attend. According to the EU's Copernicus Climate Change Service, global sea surface temperatures hit their second highest levels ever in April. I've been speaking with Helen Scales, an author and marine biologist. And I said to her, we hear a lot about forests and the air we breathe, but has the plight of the oceans been overlooked?
I think it has. I do. I think the enduring problem with our ocean is that it's out of sight and out of mind. And the bit we do see generally is that blue surface, which doesn't seem to change too much. So what lies below tends to be hidden away from our sight, both the wonderful things that live there and also the problems that are unfolding. So yes, I do think it gets less attention than those places closer to our lives on land, yeah.
And when you look below, what is, if there is, it's possible to say, your biggest worry?
Well, I mean, we are, as you say, in a situation of multiple huge problems, a polycrisis, if you like, in the ocean. So it's hard to pick out one. But climate change is hitting the ocean in many ways, and more ways, if you like, than out on land. It's heating faster, animals are moving faster, ecosystems are being impacted, very rapidly. But we also are exploiting the ocean, the wild ocean, more than we are any wild spaces on land. We're still taking wild animals in huge industrial numbers from the ocean, and we don't have an equivalent on land of exploiting animals and other wildlife in that way. So, the extent of human impacts in the ocean are extraordinarily high. But as I say, a lot of it happens either deep down or beyond the horizon, and we don't see that.
So, but you use the word wild, suggesting it's in the the deepest depths of the ocean. What would be the main culprits then?
So we're talking about industrial fishing of several kinds, things like bottom trawling. That's happening all around the world in various different depths, some of it pretty deep. We're going hundreds of meters down and scraping big, heavy nets across the seabed. So not only catching animals that will eventually be eaten, but in the process, smashing very delicate habitats like coral reefs and sponge gardens, seagrass meadows, kelp forests, things like that, places that we know are incredibly important for biodiversity in so many other ways. There's also incredible amounts of pollution getting into the ocean. Basically everything ends up there, whether it's flowing into a river and out to sea or blowing in the breeze out into the ocean. So plastic pollution, chemical pollution. We have a big growing worry about things like forever chemicals, these man-made chemicals that are put in all sorts of products that we use, from waterproof coats to pizza boxes, and a lot of those are ending up in the ocean and they don't break down. That's why they're called forever chemicals, but they are very toxic to wildlife in the seas. So we're seeing pollution, we're seeing overexploitation. And then there's new threats coming up, things like deep sea mining, which isn't happening yet, but could be soon the next big thing for us to think about and worry about in the ocean. The idea of extracting metals from rocks at the bottom of the sea that happen to also be incredibly important for various ecosystems as well. And all sorts of other parts of the health of the ocean depend on that too.
As you know, there's been growing criticism of the annual COP conference, and it's just become formulaic. How reassured are you by next week's summit?